So a couple years ago, we had a young person. I do not like losing young people. I am getting older. Remember, I'm not old yet. There's other people who are old. I'm not. Actually, in 2 weeks, I'll be 76. Not old. I told you, 80's old. When I'm 80, it's not old anymore. But anyway, so I'm not old yet. But our young people, we need young, fresh, exciting people. And then Felicity tells me she's going to Australia. Of all places. But she said she's going there to serve the Lord. She serves in another Messianic congregation there, and a great organization. They also are associated with Chosen People Ministries that help start Shuvah as well. And so she came back, and she asked, and we want her to be able to share a little bit about her ministry. Felicity, would you come forward? And the good news is she's going to be moving back to Irvine and Shuvah. Not really. Anyway, no. It's good to have you, sweetheart.
Thank you. Okay. So yes, my name is Felicity. I attended Shuvah from, I think, 2016 to 2022. However, I don't consider Shuvah as part of my past, because if I were ever to come back to the United States, I would just come right back to Shuvah. So Shuvah to me is my home congregation. That makes Fran very happy. So since moving to Australia, I actually did not move to Australia for Celebrate Messiah, which I want to share with you today. When I first moved there, I was working for, a Gentile congregation, and it wasn't really working out. Lawrence Hirsch, Rabbi Lawrence Hirsch from Celebrate Messiah, had come to speak at Shuvah. I think this was like 2018 or something. And so I met him that way, and he told me, hey, if you ever do end up moving to Australia, please join our congregation. So I did that immediately while working at this other congregation. It wasn't working out at the other congregation, and my heart, is with the Messianic community. So Lawrence said, why don't you come work for me? We need a youth ministry leader and probably a young adults ministry leader too. And I said, well, I really need a full-time job. So he goes, why don't you come work for Celebrate Messiah? You can work for our congregation and our ministry. And here I am. So it was really God's timing. It was God's plan. I did not know that was going to happen when I left the United States. So, it's been such a blessing. I'm just so amazed that the Lord has done this with my life, because I could not have known when I was attending Shuvah that God was going to use what I learned here to do ministry in Australia, of all places. So random. But some reason he put Australia on my heart. I knew I had to go. Many of you remember that, of me doing everything I possibly could do to get to Australia during the pandemic, for those of you who know me. And here I am. So I just wanted to share with you a little bit today about what it's like to do Messianic ministry in Australia, because it was interesting to me when Lorenz came here and spoke. So I said to Larry and the team, do you want me to come and tell you a little bit more? So that's why I'm here today. I actually initially had moved to Australia to do, and I'm still doing it, my doctorate in theology at Melbourne School of Theology, and I specialize in spiritual formation in an Australian context, which basically just means how do Australians perceive sanctification or spiritual growth and the role of the Holy Spirit in that growth. So I've got 2 years left of my studies. Another thing that happened soon after I moved to Australia, 2 weeks after I moved there, I met my now fiancé. So thank you. He is a believer. He wasn't part of the Messianic movement, but I have dragged him into it. And he's also an immigrant. He's from South Africa. I didn't know any South Africans here in Orange County, and now they're all over the place in Australia. So we're getting married this year, so that's really exciting too. I just want to share with you a little bit today about my ministry there and Celebrate Messiah. So first, I'll just briefly tell you what it's like for me, and then I'll get into what we're doing in the Messianic community and the Jewish community in Australia. So for me, Part-time, I do basically marketing for Celebrate Messiah. I'm the donor relations and communications manager. So that basically just means I'm making the print materials, the online materials, social media, everything that goes out into the community, the Jewish community, the Messianic community. And my job is to get the word out like I'm doing now. And then the other part-time, I'm doing the youth and young adults ministry at Beit HaMashiach, which is in Melbourne, Australia. And I'll show you later some pictures of that area because it is located in the largest Jewish community in the Southern Hemisphere. So we are right in the middle of the Orthodox community. There's Jewish delis, Jewish businesses everywhere. So I'll tell you more about that. And it is very helpful that I learned so much here at Shuvah because I learned the terminology of what's appropriate, saying things like Yeshua or Ruach HaKodesh, Rabbi Shul. That's been really helpful to know those things. Seeing Joyce, where's Joyce? I can't really see. Oh, Joyce is right there. Seeing Joyce do the Shema and the Torah reading and things like that. When they ask me to do that, I know how to do it because I saw Joyce do it for several years. So anyways, just being part of Shuvah was a stepping stone in what God is having me do now. And one thing I did recently in November was, arguably, I'm not sure, I can't totally verify this, but I ran the first youth camp for Messianic believers in Australia, which was a big deal, and it was really exciting that all these teenagers from all around Australia came together, all Messianic kids, and that was really exciting. And having all these young adults who didn't have a place to go to share their love of Israel and the Jewish people, they've all come together. We didn't really have a young adult ministry when I started. So it's been really exciting to see the things that God has been doing in Australia. He's really up to something. Okay, I want to tell you about Celebrate Messiah now. So what is Celebrate Messiah? It was started in 1995, almost 29 years ago to the day, because it was January 1995, also 2 weeks after I was born. So you do the math. And it was started by Lorenz and Louise Hirsch, who were two South Africans who had just at that point recently moved to Australia and decided they wanted to start a ministry for the Messianic community in Australia. And next slide. Oh, maybe not. Okay. So our mission is to bring the message to the original messengers, which basically means we want to bring the good news of Yeshua to the Jewish people, which don't we all as the Messianic believers. Our vision statement is giving all Jewish people the opportunity to hear, understand, and follow Yeshua, the promised Messiah. So next slide is the one with all the, nope, before that. Nope. That one. There we go. Okay. We achieve this vision in a few ways, and I will discuss these in depth in a second. First, we have 3 Messianic congregations in Australia: Melbourne, Canberra, and Sydney. So I work at Melbourne. That's our main headquarters. That's on the south side. It's like Seattle, to give you an idea. Canberra is the capital of Australia, and Sydney, you know, the Opera House and everything. We also support a congregation, Far East Russia, which I'll talk about in a second. We have a ministry called Tikkun Ulam, which is our benevolent ministry. It sounds like wings of what's happening now. And then going back to that chart. Yes, okay. We also have the Messianic Training Center, which is our online courses program in Messianic studies. It's not an academic program. It's not a degree. It's just take courses on Hebrew, Greek, as you please. And then finally, I'll talk a lot about Host Israelis, because this is a ministry, because we partner with Chosen People Ministries, especially on this one. This is something that you can do as well. So first, I want to talk about a little bit about our ministries, our congregations. So the Caulfield Messianic Center, yes. Okay, so this is where I work. We are located in the Erev, which is a concentrated community in Melbourne, Australia, of Orthodox Jewish people. Like I said earlier, we are surrounded by synagogues, Jewish businesses. We're constantly having Orthodox people pass our doors, and we are right in the heart of it, of doing ministry with the Jewish people. And that presents challenges, but it also presents a lot of opportunities to talk about Yeshua, the Messiah, especially, as you can imagine, with everything going on with the war. People are really seeking. So that is our center that we started, or opened during the pandemic. We were able to pay off the building's construction in a year based off of financial support from people who really felt the vision of having a Messianic center in Australia, which there had not been before. And in this center, we host a lot of events for the Jewish community and the Messianic community, such as like Passovers, and obviously our Shabbat services every Saturday. Next slide. So these are maps of Melbourne, Australia. So this is where I live. As you can see on the right side, the purple shows you the area. So that's the concentrated area of the Jewish community. And the left side also indicates where are all the synagogues. And we are located right smack in the middle of all the major synagogues of Melbourne, Australia. And like I said, this is the largest Jewish community in the Southern Hemisphere. So we are right in the heart of it. Okay, next slide. Okay, so these are pictures from the congregation I serve at, Beit HaMashiach. We've got this beautiful building that everywhere is symbolism about Israel, Judaism, the Torah, everything. It's just beautiful. Like we've got a Western Wall replica where you can put prayer notes. So you can just see different images of our our Passover services, our Shabbat services, things like that. Okay, next slide. We also have a congregation in Sydney. Now, they just renamed it. So this is their old name, Brit Hadashah, the New Testament, New Covenant. It is now called Beit Shalom. But this is our congregation in Sydney, and it's run by Spanish missionaries Daniel and Monica Valle. And then next slide. And then this is our Canberra congregation called Hene Yeshua. And funny enough, the two missionaries here, Robert and Eleanor Miles, are also American. They're from back east. And their kids, although they were raised in Australia, they sound American. And they are homeschooled. So I really get along with them very well. So as I said, Canberra is in our capital. So they're surrounded by a lot of government officials and people who are really high up in Australian government. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is our ministry to what we call the Forgotten Jews of Far East Russia. So this is a Messianic congregation, as you can see, at the far east side of Russia. I'm not going to be able to pronounce these names, sorry. But next slide. So this is their congregation, their main congregation, Beit Yeshua, Messianic congregation in Russia. They had issues with their former building. I think they may have been told they had to leave or something. I don't know why, maybe anti-Semitism. But anyways, they found a basement to do their Shabbat services, and Lorenz Hirsch said to them, "Are you sure you want to do it in a basement?" And they go, "Yeah, that's be fine." And they have said that their congregation is just flourishing in Russia, and they're doing really well, even in this basement. So we support them and their ministry there. Okay, next slide. Okay, Tikkun Olam is our benevolent ministry. So just kind of like what Wings was just talking about, what we do is, next slide, we pack together food hampers. So these are our volunteers at the Melbourne congregation. So we pack food hampers, and then we hand deliver them not only to people in our community, but also to the Jewish community at large in Melbourne and the other cities in Australia as well, to those who are in need. So it doesn't matter what your need is. We don't discriminate. As long as you are Messianic or Jewish, we will help you. So we pack these food hampers together. Next slide. Here's some pictures of people putting things together. Our volunteers also like to make little cards and notes for people just to encourage them in the name of Yeshua and in the love of Yeshua. And they put them in the food hampers, and then they drive trucks around and they deliver it to the Jewish community. And then next slide. Something we started this year is doing monthly luncheons at our Caulfield Messianic Center in Melbourne for Jewish people in the community who are in need. So they get a free lunch. And if they're comfortable, we don't push it, we don't always initiate it, but we'll talk about Yeshua. We feel very strongly that our building itself is a testament to Yeshua and our love for the Jewish people and Israel. And so that starts a lot of conversations just within itself. But mainly, our main idea is that we just want to share the love with the Jewish community and not force it on them and create hostility in any way. So it's just a way to give to the Jewish community. Okay, next slide. Okay, Messianic Training Center. This is an online program that we have where we do every semester new courses on topics regarding Messianic studies. So biblical Hebrew, Israeli Hebrew, Greek, Messiah in the Psalms, Messiah in the prophets, the Jewish context of the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament. So, there was another one we just did last year about anti-Semitism, the history of anti-Semitism, and that was really well attended. Next slide. So our vision with the Messianic Training Center is to empower believers for Messianic Jewish ministry, as well as to provide expert, biblically based and principled teaching, and to equip all believers, Jewish and Gentile, to bring the message to the original messengers. And next slide. So our plan is to offer courses in biblical studies, Jewish history and culture, and biblical languages. And we're starting internships in Australia for young people who want to learn more about how to do effective Jewish evangelism. We opened the center in 2021 as a response to a growing demand for teaching from a Messianic Jewish perspective. Now, I know here in the U.S. we have the Feinberg program, and actually many Australians do that program. They do it online. But we didn't have anything in Australia where if you weren't able to do a full-on degree, how could you grow more in an understanding of the Jewish context of the scriptures or of Messianic Judaism? So this is like a supplement, as if you can't do a degree or you want to do this in supplement to your degree, you can do our online courses. And we have actually many Americans who take these courses. So if you're interested in something like this, then this could be something you could look into. And I do have flyers about the Messianic Training Center if you're interested in that. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is the main one I want to focus on because this is definitely something that you could participate in because we do this in tandem with Chosen People Ministries. So Host Israelis is an opportunity to host Israeli backpackers in your homes. So next slide for me. So Romans 11:11 says, salvation has come to the Gentiles to provoke Israel to jealousy. So this idea of showing hospitality to these young Israeli backpackers who have just completed their service in the IDF is a way to make them think a little bit deeper and differently about Yeshua. They're more open, more than ever before, because of what's going on in Israel right now with the Hamas war. They're open to hearing about Yeshua, and this provokes them to this kind of jealousy by believers in Yeshua, Jewish and Gentile, inviting them into their homes. So next slide. So we call this the sleeping giant of Jewish evangelism because what better way to reach the Jewish community than inviting them in your homes for free for a short-term stay and just showing them the love of Yeshua. You know, no questions asked, nothing. It's just we want to show you the love of Yeshua through hospitality. Next slide. So Israelis have been backpacking through all parts of the world since the 1970s, usually is like a gap year after they serve in the IDF, like I said. And believers have been hosting them throughout the world for about 20 years, but in some cases it was just ad hoc, and in some cases it was through networks that wasn't properly vetting and training the hosts. So we wanted to create a network that properly vetted hosts, make sure they had good intentions, and also training them so that we weren't getting into some weird, situations and putting Israelis in uncomfortable positions. And what's interesting, even when I was just at Muchan in Poland, a young adults conference for Messianic believers, the Israelis there were talking about how they have all gone through Host Israelis, they've been hosted by people throughout the world, and what a positive experience that was for them. So it's becoming more popular than ever with Israelis, those who do not even believe in Yeshua, to go through this network to be hosted when they go abroad. So it's become very popular. And here in Orange County, you are in a prime location. I know this because I grew up here. We've got Disneyland, we've got Los Angeles 2 hours north, we've got San Diego 2 hours south, we've got beautiful beaches and everything. Israelis will want to come here, and if you have space in your home, what an amazing way to reach the Jewish and Israeli community by inviting them into your homes. Now, I just found out at Muchan that Chosen People is actually extending this now, that if you feel like, I can't really commit to that, having someone in my home, I don't have the space or the time, you can actually still apply to become a host, but say, I can only do a Shabbat dinner. If an Israeli is in my area and they want a place to go for a Shabbat dinner, or they want somewhere to go on Shabbat to a congregation, I will host them. Or if they want to go to the beach and they want someone to take them to the beach, I will hang out with them. I love surfing, I'll take the Israeli surfing. So even in just the smallest ways, you can host an Israeli who's coming through Orange County. We oversee Australian applications, but Chosen People does the American applications. Okay, next slide. So here are some pictures of the Israeli backpackers who've come through Australia. A lot of these pictures were taken by Lorenz and Louise Hirsch. And on the right side, there's that big photo of all these Israelis. That was because this last year when they were in Israel for a CPM conference, that they got together all these Israeli backpackers that they had hosted over the last 20 years. And they had like a get-together. And some of these people they hadn't seen in years. Now they're married, have babies. Several of them had become believers in Yeshua. So it's just a testament to show that this is a really effective way to reach young Israelis. Okay, next slide. We're really passionate about good training. So there's a lot of training videos through CPM when you apply to become a host of what are the best ways to interact with these Israelis, not putting them in uncomfortable positions and not putting yourself in an uncomfortable position by hosting them. Next slide. So if you would like to apply for this, if you're interested in it, you can go to hostisraelis.com and you can inquire there or you can apply. And like I said, Chosen People Ministries will oversee your application. Not me, but they will oversee that. Next slide. Okay, so there's two more things I just want to say before I wrap up really quick. One thing I wasn't able to get into the slides was we also have a new initiative called Zularoo. So that is a lodge that we have bought along the Great Ocean Road in Victoria, Australia. So that's the state I live in. If you've ever seen pictures of the 12 Apostles, which is the big stone pillars, that is the Great Ocean Road. It's a main prime spot for tourism in Victoria. And we've created this lodge as a way that it's like a hostel almost for Israeli backpackers, that if they're traveling through Australia, they can stop there, rest, hang out with other Israelis, go surfing in the ocean, and if they are open to it, hear more about Yeshua. So we're raising right now the funds to pay off that lodge, and it's $1.4 million. So we are believing and trusting in the Lord that He's going to provide us for that, and you can learn more through our website about that. It's already started. In December, we opened it to Israeli backpackers, so we've already got them coming through, and they're visiting, and they're experiencing trauma from what's going on in the Middle East, and this has been a really great way to minister to them in this really difficult time. And then the last thing I just want to mention, that if you feel led to support the ministry of Celebrate Messiah, any of these like sub-ministries that I've talked about, if you feel passionate about any of these areas, or if you feel led that you want to support my ministry in Australia, you can go to our website, celebratemessiah.com.au. I've also have these donation slips if you are interested, and I have some other flyers out in the foyer, and you can ask me questions when I go out there after service. And so that's all I had to say. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, everyone. God bless you.
Thank you, Felicity. We will keep you in prayer. It is very exciting to see you and anybody here wanting to do ministry for the Lord. We are all called to do ministry. You're actively in it. We got to keep her in prayer. Keep that ministry. Celebrate Messiah. I know the founder, Lorenz. He's wonderful. He's got a good name. Anyway, so we keep you guys in prayer. Thank you so much, Felicity.